Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to the Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. This is your host, Bob Gibbons.
And I'm Stephen Nooner, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today. We have Craig Scheef, who is the CEO and chairman and president of Texas Security Bank, a bank here locally here in DFW. They started in 2008. They employ 45 people, and you can learn more about them at texassecuritybank.com.
Welcome, Craig.
Welcome.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you being here. It's we're excited to know the secrets of how to get money.
Good.
Straight from the banker's mouth. But before we do that, let's start off with the wisdom of others today. And today I've got a very intimidating quote that Craig provided, Stephen. So I'm anxious for you to interpret this for me.
Okay.
It's from Mark Twain. The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why you were born. Have you reached both dates already, Stephen?
Yeah.
All right. There's 2 out of 3 in the room. So why is that so important to you, Craig?
Well, I guess early in my career, I read a lot of books and things like The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren and Visioneering by Andy Stanley. And I think most of us have gone through periods of time in our life when we ask that question, is this all there is? And not only from a spiritual standpoint, but also from a career standpoint. What was I uniquely designed to do? And life gets easier, work gets easier, work becomes more fulfilling once you figure out what it was you're uniquely designed to do. So,
And kind of my take on this, as you know, I have a lot of passion around this subject, is I didn't have like a burning bush moment where it was like, okay, you're going to do this. It was literally a process of living life committed to being present and walking with our Heavenly Father, right? So that I would be in tune with when those things come, and He led me and has directed me. So a lot of times I tell people when I say yes, it's because I believe I've identified it, but it also, because I haven't had the burning bush, I feel like I have my purpose for today. My purpose right now is to have fun and to share a story about some great entrepreneur,
So let me ask you this question then. Does this quote apply to you as the individual and to a company?
absolutely.
And are those different?
Well, I mean, when you start getting into kind of the spiritual side of things, as believers, I think we're called to live an integrated life. So I don't think and that's an issue a lot of times, I think, with business owners and just people in general is, we've got our church life, we've got our family life, and we got our work life. And a lot of times we're different people in each of those areas. And I don't think that's how it's designed to be.
No.
So you would you might have the same purpose even if you had a different company at some point. But if you had the next company might not have the same purpose as this company.
Right. Again, it's on the spiritual side of things. If you look at Matthew 28, our purpose is pretty much explained there in terms of we're to go make disciples of all nations. Well, what does that look like for a banker? What does that look for a real estate advisor? And I think there's certain precepts and principles that apply in your spiritual life that obviously apply in your business life. And I think the source of all wisdom is our Creator, and my definition of wisdom is just the ability to live life skillfully, and that definitely applies to the business world.
Well, let's talk about business.
Okay.
So you guys, I love your tagline. You guys, your goal is to elevate the champions of free enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us what that means to you, because I think that has a lot to do with what makes your TSB or Texas Security Bank unique.
Right. It goes back to the idea of where the bank came from. What was the idea that generated, the passion to create the bank? And my background is I worked for a large money center bank here in town for 15 years and had a good lending career, managed a team of lenders, had the opportunity to go to work for a bank that at the time was out of state, came into the state, and bought up a number of community banks. And I was asked to run one of those community banks that they bought, and eventually run 3 more in Dallas and 3 in Houston. And when I worked at the money center bank, I dealt with large, more corporate clients, companies with revenues from $20 million to $250 million, many of them publicly traded, usually very professionally managed. And I had an opportunity to go to work lending money to what we call owner-managed businesses, true entrepreneurs. And it's much more messy dealing with entrepreneurs than somebody who has a degree from Wharton or University of Texas or something like that. Most of these people, if they have college degrees, it's not necessarily in one of the business disciplines. And so I saw a great need in terms of continuing education. And so the idea for the bank came from a couple of questions like, what if there's a bank that trained its bankers to be excellent business people that happened to be bankers, that they were well trained in all the key business disciplines from economics, accounting, finance, sales management, that type of thing. What a resource that could be for the entrepreneur, for the owner-managed business. What if there was a bank who provided very structured continuing education for business owners along those same lines? And so that's where the TSB Business Institute comes from, and we've always had it. Elevating the champions of free enterprise is important because the free enterprise capitalism system, in my opinion, is the greatest system ever designed by man to lift the way of life for everybody in terms of creating jobs, in terms of raising lifestyle for people, particularly the middle class. You look at the growth of this country after World War II, there's no comparison in the history of the world in terms of growth of wealth and well-being of the citizens of the United States. So it was a great example for the rest of the world, frankly, on what type of system works. And so this space that we support, the owner-managed business, represents 2/3 to 3/4 of the federal income tax that's paid in this country each year. But sometimes that group is a little bit demonized. It also represents about 3/4 of the net job growth in this country. So having a bank that has, in my opinion, a very noble purpose of elevating those people who take risk, both in terms of personal capital and in reputation. They work hard. They, like I said, they create jobs. Being a resource to people who provide that for the rest of the country, I think, is a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Well,
so.
Why do you think that more banks don't take that approach? Is it just because the much bigger, more sophisticated, less risk, and then just bigger loans? I mean,
I think, that is the purpose of banks in our economy, is to provide that. I think the differentiator with us is the space that we focus on and not just our product offering, because to an extent banks are commodities. We rent money and we give you a place to park cash. It's kind of what you do in between those things that is your differentiator. And so what's our service offering? What's the bank's service offering? Well, we invest a lot of money training people to be great resources for that business owner so that they can have rich, meaningful conversations with those business owners. The other thing that resonates with business owners for us is the fact that a group of people, myself and our leadership team, had a vision for a bank. We all left perfectly good jobs, very well-paying jobs, took a significant cut in pay, and went without pay for a period of time to start this bank. And so everything that owner-managed business owner goes through in terms of sweating payroll, putting capital at risk, going years without a vacation, working long hours, we've done that. We started just like they did with a blank sheet of paper in a vision, and we did it. So not many business owners sit across from a banker who can say that. Not many business owners sit across from a banker who is the largest shareholder in that bank. Mm-hmm. So that resonates with business owners, and I think our last 9 years performance speaks to how it's been received by business owners.
If your clients want to talk about having a hard time and going through hard times, you guys, as I understand, started your bank in the biggest booming cycle in America, right? 2008.
It was really interesting. We started the process. I left my previous employer to write the business plan, put an organizing group together, and raise capital in April of 2007, and the banking industry was doing really good.
They were rocking
for
a few more months.
And then we started our capital raise in October of 2007, and it went over to the first quarter of 2008, and the banking crisis had begun. Bear Stearns had collapsed, Lehman's had collapsed, and of course we had a lot of investors wishing they had invested, but like, what did I do? But we were very disciplined. When we lend money, it's our money that makes a difference, and God provided. We were just disciplined and very fortunate. We reached profitability within 23 months, which is very good, especially in that climate. So
how much would you say that starting in a difficult time actually refined you to be able to have the success you have now?
I think that's a great point. It definitely hones your focus a lot more. And there were some benefits to it as well. Banks who had started in 04, 05, 06, and had basically lent a lot of money at the top of the business cycle, they suffered. But we at least had the good fortune of having a clean balance sheet, no issues. So,
okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to ask a few lightning round questions of our guest Craig, such as why can't Bob turn off the sound on his computer in the studio?
I've got an answer for that. Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand, and landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate one, maybe two leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
This is CJ Camus. I'm the chairman and founder of Earthwater. We're the ones that turn the water black, and it's interesting to be on the show here with Bob and Steve because I think they've turned a lot of things upside down as well.
We're back with Craig Scheef, founder of Texas Security Bank. If you want to learn more about Texas Security Bank, please visit texassecuritybank.com. Love it when you don't have to spell anything. I did have a question for you, and that was before the break that was in my mind. And what I wanted to ask you is, how do you keep, as you guys continue to grow, you've had a lot of success, how do you keep your bankers entrepreneurial?
Yeah. Well, growth will help you do that.
Sure.
And it kind of starts a little bit with what the value set is for the organization. We have a set of core values. One of those is creativity, which has to do with problem solving. Mm-hmm. And as you grow, the processes, how we do things, whether it's business development, credit underwriting, closing loans, customer service, as you grow, those things are always going to have to change. And what those things look like 3 years ago versus what they'll look like 3 years from now is going to be very different. So those processes continually have to be evaluated. So in keeping with the value, we encourage not just our bankers, but all of our staff to bring up when a process no longer fits who we are because of growth. Obviously, being in an organization that has good, healthy growth creates opportunities for people, more opportunities for people, mm-hmm. and people with ambition obviously would like to take on additional responsibility, have additional compensation available for them, and so you kind of have to have that entrepreneurial ambition to do that. They recognize that as we grow, there's going to be a need for them to take on additional responsibility, and that forces kind of that entrepreneurial thinking. We do encourage personnel to invest in our bank. We don't have an ESOP necessarily. We do have stock options for people, and they know those are available for people who act like owners. There's for those of you that are business owners, I think you recognize there tends to be a difference between employees and owners in terms of their behavior. Oh, yeah. And so if people exhibit ownership behavior, they know they become candidates for equity. In addition, we encourage them to put their own hard-earned money into the bank, and there's nothing more powerful than that. Put that money at risk, and if you want to be an owner, we'll let you feel the weight of that. So,
so you're not like all the other banks in that you have little branches on every corner. How many branches do you have, and are they sitting on the corner waiting for somebody just to walk in?
No, the banking industry's changed a lot over the last 10 or 15 years. Technology's had a lot to do with that. It's much more difficult to make the same amount of money 10 or 15 years ago in banking than today because of things like compliance cost and the fact that we've been in a very, very low interest rate environment for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so our model is what I would call a branch light model. And our efficiency ratio as a result is very, very good. The metrics that we look at are total earning assets per full-time equivalent employee and total assets per branch location. And so this allows our expense ratio to be as low as possible and creates very, very good return on assets. So, for example, 15 years ago, it was not uncommon for the average bank to have a 1.5% return on assets. Today, the average return on assets is probably in the 75 basis points, maybe 80 basis points. Today, we're probably 1.4, and as we grow, we can effectively double the size of our bank with the 3 locations that we have. I mentioned technology. Every business owner can make a deposit from their own office. So, we have clients that are 2 blocks away from the bank that never come in because they just use the remote capture. And as well as we have, some customers who are, several hours away. And so we leverage technology that way and for the benefit of our shareholders.
So what are the key things that a business owner should be considering whenever they're trying to decide should they pick a new bank? I mean, you obviously have talked eloquently about how your people are trained business people. They have equity investments in the business. That's a big thing. But are there other things? I mean, when you really get down to it, what do I care who my bank is if I don't really need all the services that are available, the treasury services and all that kind of stuff? Are there other things we really need to be focused on to make sure that we're getting the right bank?
Yeah, it depends on the individual circumstance, but in terms of business owners, a independent bank that if I was, I am a business owner, but if I was a business owner, I had an owner-managed business other than banking, I would probably want to go with a smaller independent bank because of those dynamics that exist with us are more likely to exist. Obviously, ones that are focused on technology and how can technology be utilized to deliver product and service in a more meaningful manner. I would have conversations about the training that's provided to the bankers, not just in terms of how to underwrite bank products, loans, that type of thing. The analytics about it, that's kind of a given, but if I had an owner-managed business, I'd want somebody that I could have meaningful conversations about business with outside of just the realm of banking. What's the best hiring practices out there? How does your incentive compensation plan work? How do you measure efficiency within your organization? What is your strategic plan, and what are the steps you're going to use to get there? A good banker should be able to have conversations with business owners about that thing. Obviously, as a business owner is successful and his business is successful, that inures to the benefit of the bank that banks them.
So just out of curiosity, back to the people, do you look for business people, like when you're recruiting now, do you look for business people to that you can teach banking, or do you look for bankers that you can develop in their business acumen?
It's turned out that way. If you look at our bankers that we have, a large portion of them come from owner-managed business backgrounds in terms of their parents had a business, they get it. And so when we're out recruiting somebody, I don't know, we've been real deliberate on, do you have any owner-managed business in your background? But I do think our story excites them.
Sure.
And so I think there's a tendency to be able to, for one reason or another, there's a tendency that our story attracts those type of people.
Do you do any other kind of training development in the area of business acumen once you get them in? I mean, is it ongoing?
Yes.
So
we have bi-weekly lunch and learns where we follow a particular curriculum. I'm involved in a CEO organization called C12, similar to like a Vistage, that has a very, very rich curriculum on all aspects of business. And so I use that curriculum as training during those biweekly lunch and learns over the course of 2, 3, 4 years. They're going to touch every topic in terms of, credit collections. How do you set up a credit collections process? How do you know if the price that you're charging is the right price? Things like that. Inventory management, sales management, incentive compensation, all those things. I mean, just a ton of topic. And we get our young people involved in that. So when we have a credit analyst, which is basically the training program to become a banker, by the time they get out of the credit analyst program, they're going to be well-trained bankers. That's what that's designed to do. But I want them, after 2 years, to really feel confident walking into a business and sitting down with an owner and having a meaningful conversation about whatever issue they're dealing with. So
I understand you also provide ongoing training to clients.
yes.
Make it available to clients. What does that look like?
So it's the TSB Business Institute. Like everything, all of our other processes, we continue to improve it. But the focus is right now. What that looks like is every month we have a TSB Business Institute. We try and focus the majority of the training on 5 or 6 key business disciplines. In terms of, an example would be how to finance or fund a business correctly. Bank capital is not always the solution. There are other capital providers out there that might be more appropriate. How to do budgeting and forecasting. How to best hiring practices, as I mentioned. What we're moving to with the TSB Business Institute and is to come up with, we do that, let me back up, we do that once a month, and each year we'll put about 400 to 500 business owners and their employees through that program. What we're moving to is a more structured deal where it will include accounting 1 and 2 for business owners, finance, economics, and basically coming up with a curriculum that'll be on Saturdays, 4-hour periods, and free of charge. Anybody who wants to come does not have to be our customer. Just a business owner that has a passion for free enterprise, and the idea is that they go through that training and they come out with some really good fundamentals that they wouldn't have if they don't, unless they had a business degree.
So what's next for the bank? Where do you see yourselves being in 3 years?
My job as CEO of the bank is to maximize shareholder wealth, and so I'm somewhat agnostic. And since I am the largest shareholder, I'm kind of agnostic how we achieve that. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But in terms of size, I'd like to think that we have the same number of locations, that we're, twice the size we are right now in 3 years, and very profitable, potential of going public, potential of doing some acquisitions over that 3-year period, and continuing to serve in a better way, a much improved way, the business owners that are out there.
Well, thanks so much for being our guest today. Appreciate it. Craig Scheef, TexasSecurityBank.com, if you'd like to look him up.
If you want to learn more about the show or help spread the word, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, all kinds of great social places.
And even nextlevelshow.com.
That's it.
See you next week.
Have a great week.
Guest.
Thank you.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.